Thank you, Madeline. So good afternoon, everyone. Afternoon, evening. So today we're going to talk about CalAble. Um, and just know that the information we're providing today is good up until today. Things can change. So when you're reviewing this information down the line, I would recommend that you go onto the CalAble website to make sure the information is still current, or contact CalAble. You can do that by calling them or emailing them. So we've got a map of the United States, and we've got CalAble on one side and ABLE on the other. ABLE is the acronym for Achieving a Better Life Experience Act. That's the federal legislation that established the ability of states to have ABLE programs in their states. So California has opted to participate in the ABLE program. And of course, California has called its program CalAble. So we're going to talk a little bit about the ABLE Act, and then we're going to dive into CalAble. So let's go ahead and do that. So in 2014, this law was signed into statute. So we've got statutes and regulations that govern this act, and it's not mandatory that all states have this program. It's optional. So in a later slide, you're going to see a little bit about the number of states that have opted to have ABLE programs in their states. But what this program does, it allows persons with disabilities who qualify to have these accounts invest in the options that are available in that state. And the money in the account and the earnings in the earnings in the account are tax-free. And the owner of the account can either accumulate money in the account. There are certain parameters that we'll discuss a little later, and or use the money in the account to pay for what are called disability related expenses. Now, having an ABLE account does not affect your eligibility for programs such as the SSI program, which is the federal needs-based program through Social Security, or Medicaid, known as Medi-Cal in California. We'll discuss all of these things in further detail as we move along. So effective this year, and when we go to the eligibility slide, you'll see that you have to show that your disability began before the age of 46. It used to be before the age of 26, but starting this year, it's now you have to show that you were disabled before the age of 46. What did it do? This expansion has now allowed even more people to possibly qualify for an ABLE account. So we've got 47 states who are participating in ABLE, in the ABLE program, the District of Columbia, Guam. As you can see here, there are 3 states that have not. Now, some states allow out-of-state residents to open ABLE accounts in their state. So let's say, for example, I live in California and I want to open up an ABLE account. I can open up an ABLE account in California, but I can also open up an ABLE account in another state that allows me, an out-of-state resident, to open one. So let's say, for example, Washington allows out-of-state residents to open an account in Washington. So being a California resident, I could open up an account in Washington, but I can only have one account. I can't have an account in Washington and California and another state that allows me to have an account as a non-resident. So when you're deciding, which state to open the account in. It's something that you need to know. You can only have one. So I'm going to have to, if I'm deciding between Washington and California, I've got to decide I can't have an ABLE account in each state. Since the ABLE Act is federal legislation, eligibility criteria and annual contribution limits are the same throughout every state that participates in the ABLE program, but there are differences too. So, the limits, the ceiling amounts that you can have, the investment options, and other things can be different. But just know that the eligibility criteria and the annual contribution limits are the same in any state that participates in the CalAble program. So now let's talk about the California Achieving a Better Life Experience, or CalAble accounts. Now remember, this eligibility criteria is for any state, so not only California. So in order for you to qualify to open up an ABLE account, you have to show that you were disabled before the age of 46. So let's say that I'm 60 years old, and today I find out about the CalAble program. But I was disabled at age 20. I still meet this first criterion because I was disabled before the age of 46. In fact, I was disabled at the age of 20. It doesn't matter how old I am now, as long as I can show that I was disabled before the age of 46. And I either am receiving the SSI through Social Security, or the other program, which is called Social Security Disability Insurance, known as SSDI, or I'm getting Social Security benefits based on blindness, or I get a letter from a doctor which addresses a lot of the criteria that you would have to meet to qualify for SSI or SSDI, so the disability criteria. At the end of this presentation, there's a list of resources, and in that list of resources, you'll find an example of a letter that self-certifies. So for example, when you're applying for CalAble, CalAble is not going to, and if you're going to self-certify that you meet this criteria, you have a disability, CalAble is not going to ask you for that self-certification letter when you apply, but it could down the line. So it's always best to have it ready in case you're asked for it. So let me repeat, this is really important. In order to open up an ABLE account, you have to show that you were disabled before the age of 46, and either you're receiving SSI or SSDI benefits or blind benefits through Social Security Administration, or you self-certify. Okay, so this is it. And that's how you're going to be able to qualify. You don't open up an ABLE account or a CalAble account by going to a bank. If you go to a bank and try to open up a CalAble account, they're going to say, I don't know what you're talking about. You do this online through the CalAble website. So earlier I mentioned that if you have a CalAble account, you can use the money in your CalAble account to pay for qualified disability expenses. It's really important that the second bullet point is the definition of what a qualified disability expense is. It's an expense that will help you maintain and improve your health, independence, or quality of life. Okay, so there is not an exhaustive list of what a qualified disability expense is. There are categories that we have listed here. So for example, housing, you might want to, you could buy a home with your as a down payment of for your mortgage. You can modify your home. You can, pay your rent, pay your taxes. Those are the kinds of things that you can pay. Food, transportation. Let's say my insurance doesn't cover certain type of equipment that I need for my disability. Well, I could use my money in my CalAble account to pay for that. I could pay for joining a gym, or I can hire an attorney to help me with something that I need to deal with. Um, the 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 CalAble program is not going to make you submit on a monthly, weekly, bi-yearly basis the expenses that you have incurred. Um, so it's really important for you to keep receipts of all of your purchases or your qualified disability expenses in case the IRS asks you for it, or maybe, who knows, CalAble or the Social Security Administration, if that pertains to you. So, and if you do not know whether what you want to spend the money on is a qualified disability expense, reach out to CalAble and ask them that question. I've done it before when I was doing casework and I had a CalAble question. In fact, I would email them and they would email me the response. I think it's a good idea to email versus having a conversation over the phone, because with an email, you're getting a response like, it's written versus, oh, they told me over the phone this. You've got an answer in writing. So again, if you're not quite sure if what you want to spend the money on is a qualified disability expense, call the CalAble program or whatever ABLE program you sign up for in whatever state, call them. So let's go on to the next one. Of course, there are non-qualified disability expenses. So there are things you cannot use your money for. So you can't use it to gamble, to buy alcohol, to buy an illegal item, to give someone something. So I remember we had a question where the participant asked, well, then does that mean that with the CalAble money, we can pay for a family vacation? No, can't pay for a family vacation. The owner of the account can pay for his or her vacation, but can't pay out of the ABLE money or the ABLE account the vacation expenses for the family. Okay, so it's always the expenses should be to benefit the person who owns the account. If you do spend the money on non-qualified disability expenses, there will be may result in federal tax penalties and other things. Again, if you're not quite sure if what you want to spend the money on is a qualified disability expense, reach out to the program. And at the end of the training material, there are resources that you can go to for more information on what is a qualified disability expense. So the program allows you to put in your ABLE account up to $20,000 a year, and we're talking from January 1st to the end of December. That's a calendar year. And that's it. Except if you are working and you're not participating in your employer's retirement plan, you can contribute whichever is less of the amount equal to your gross income for the year, or up to $15,650. So say, for example, I have an ABLE account. I'm not participating in my employer's retirement plan. I can put up to $20,000 a year. And on top of that, I can put up to an additional $15,650. So that there's more of an opportunity to put more money if you meet this criteria. Okay, so limits on how much you can have in your account. In California, the maximum amount of money that you can have in your CalAble account is $529,000, except if you are receiving SSI benefits. If you are receiving SSI benefits, the maximum that you can receive, that you can have in your CalAble account is $100,000. In fact, I've been told that if you're close to the 100,000 and you want to deposit money that will exceed the $100,000 limit, the program won't let you. It'll automatically not allow you to do that. So there's a safety buffer there, but so it's different. If you're on SSI benefits, the maximum you can have in your CalAble account is 100,000. Otherwise, 529,000. Now, I just want to talk about SSI for a moment. If you have a CalAble account and you're on SSI and you want to use some of that money in your CalAble account to pay for housing expenses, let's say you want to pay your rent and you want to pay your rent, some of it or all of it from your CalAble money, you need to make sure that that money that you take out of your CalAble account is used in the same calendar month. Otherwise, the SSI program is going to treat it as a resource that could disqualify for you from getting SSI or suspend your SSI because now you're over the resource limit. The general SSI rule for income is that income is considered income in the month you receive it. Whatever is left at the end of the month that goes into the next month converts into a resource. And for the SSI program, if you're an adult individual, you can't have more than $2,000 in resources. So again, it's really important that if you're on SSI and you want to use your CalAble money to pay your rent, take it out. If you're going to take that, if you're going to pay your May rent and you're taking out that money from the CalAble account in May, you're paying that May rent in May, and you're not, postponing it to June because that could cause issues with your SSI. Okay, so having a CalAble account is not going to affect your benefits if you're getting any benefits through the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. SNAP program here in California, it's called CalFresh. The federal aid for student aid called FAFSA. Of course, Medicare or Medi-Cal benefits, Social Security disability insurance benefits. As an aside, Medi-Cal has reinstated resource rules, meaning that they're now looking at resources to determine whether you qualify for Medi-Cal or not. But whatever you have in your CalAble account is excluded as it relates to asset eligibility for Medi-Cal, so you don't have to worry about that. So how do you open up an ABLE account? You go online. When you go online, it'll tell you what it is you need to have ready so that the process is, it's not taking a lot of time for you to do that. Also, CalAble has something called e-gifting or electronic gifting. There's something that I do want to say. So I can put money if I own the I opened up the ABLE account because I qualified for it. I can put money into my CalAble account. Friends, strangers can put money into my CalAble account. And the money that they put into my CalAble account will not count as income to me, which is very different than the normal rules. So, for example, for SSI, if someone were to give me money, it would count as income. But if that same person puts money directly into my CalAble account, it's not considered income to me. The e-gifting is a way for people to contribute to my CalAble account. You can also ask for a prepaid Visa card. So that's a way for paying for qualified disability expenses is by using the Visa card. It's just a way to do it. The program charges a fee of $30 a year. But there's also a mobile application that you can use for the CalAble program. So there's a registration page. You can just go on to the CalAble website and you'll see where it says open up an account. And you're going to, provide the basic information about you, your email address. You're going to create a password because every time you sign in, that's what you're going to be using to sign in. I liken it to when you're doing online banking. When I do online banking, it's asking me for my username and my password to get into my account. Now banks have added additional safeguards, but pretty much that's, you're going to be doing that every time you log into your account to look at your balance, to do whatever it is you need to do. You can also link, when you open up your CalAble account, you can link your bank account to your CalAble account. So let's say, for example, I want to link my Chase bank account to my CalAble account. I can do that. And that makes it very easy to take money out of my CalAble account or to deposit money into my CalAble account, because I do it electronically between my bank and the CalAble account. And your initial investment is $25. But remember, you can put up to $20,000 a year. But the program is just saying, look, just to open this account, all we require is $25. Who can open up an account or manage an account? You have to be a U.S. citizen or an individual residing in the U.S. I had some questions about what that meant. What do you mean an individual residing in the U.S.? And so I reached out to the CalAble program, and they clarified that it's a lawful permanent resident. That's what it means, an individual residing in the U.S. You have to be 18 years or older, with capacity to contract, have a social security number or a tax ID number, and you have to have a permanent resident. If you list a post office box as your residence, it's not going to work. They're going to require an actual permanent address. Did I stop sharing? Okay, my battery's going low. Hold on a minute. I'm sorry. Okay, there we go. It's just that I can't see. Okay, so let's go back to. Okay, here we go. Sorry about that. Okay. Now, what if you don't have capacity, right? Don't have capacity to enter into a contract, then what? You can have an authorized legal representative, and the way that the CalAble program looks at who could be your legal authorized representative, they start with Does the person have, well, if I choose someone because I have capacity to do that, to be that person, then fine. Otherwise, does Maria have anyone who has a power of attorney to do this? If not, does Maria have a conservator or a legal guardian, a spouse, a parent, a sibling, a grandparent, or someone who's been appointed by Social Security to be the authorized, the representative payee? Or maybe there's an organizational payee. So I can open up my own ABLE account if I have capacity. Otherwise, other individuals may be able to open up an account and manage my account for me. And this is the order of priority right here. Okay, so people ask, well, how do I put money into my CalAble account? How do I take money out? You can send, you can have the SSI, but if you're receiving SSI, you can have it direct deposited into your CalAble account. You can send a check to the CalAble program and they'll deposit it into your CalAble account. Or if you've linked your bank account with the CalAble account, then you can do it that way. If you want to withdraw money from your CalAble account, they can send you a check with that money, but they're going to charge you $5 every time you ask for a check. Again, if you've linked your bank account with a CalAble account, you can withdraw money that way. You can, if you have a prepaid Visa card, you can always reload it. And the note here is really important, and I mentioned it before. You have to maintain records of your qualified disability expenses because CalAble does not track or verify whether the purchase is a qualified disability expense. But if you do reach out to them, they can do that because they've done that for me before. So e-gifting pages, you'll find this on the website. Like I said, others can make contribution to my CalAble account directly to my CalAble account. They receive a unique URL for that. And people can share the URL links. There are ways to do this, and there's more information on the CalAble website about e-gifting. It's just a nice feature to have. So for example, let's say that I'm saving to buy a computer. I could reach out to the CalAble program and work with them to get this information to the people I want them to get this information so that they can make contributions directly into my CalAble account. This is a question that we get a lot is, how do I close a CalAble account? You can do it at any time. But before you do that, I strongly urge you to reach out to the CalAble program to see if you're going to owe any taxes or penalties. If your funds were not used to pay for qualified disability expenses. In fact, I've seen on the, and Madeline may want to confirm that when we get into questions, but I've seen in the website something that says if you're going to close an account, please call us before you do this, so that you're well aware of what could happen when you close the account, because you don't want to be surprised down the line. The other thing that we're asked a lot is, well, what happens if you have a CalAble account and you die? Well, let's say that I have a CalAble account and I die and there's money in my CalAble account. Well, what's going to happen is the executor of my estate, whoever that happens to be, can use funds from the CalAble account to pay, for example, my burial expenses or anything related to that out of my CalAble account. Whatever remains goes to my estate. What is my estate? My estate is made up of everything I own. whether it be real property, personal property, that's my estate. And so that money will be transferred to my estate. The other question is, well, can Medi-Cal get any money when I die? Well, it might. There are very specific rules, Medi-Cal recovery rules, and the California Advocates for Nursing Home Reform, they have really good publications on what those rules are. Medi-Cal doesn't always get to put a lien on what they've paid out, but you should know those rules. But do know that there's a CalAble protection against creditors for up to $100,000. So if someone sues me and they get a judgment against me for $150,000, 100,000. If I have $100,000 in my CalAble account, they can't touch that money. They're going to have to get it from another source, right? They just can't touch the money that's in my CalAble account. Okay. The other thing to know is sometimes people ask, well, can I have a CalAble account and a special needs trust? Yes, you can have both. The CalAble account is relatively easy to open if you qualify for it. Doesn't take a long time. You do it online. The person with the disability is always the account holder. The authorized legal representative can manage the account for the owner of the account, but the account owner will always be the person with the disability. And with an ABLE account, anyone can put money in, and obviously there are limits. It doesn't cost a lot to open up an account, a CalAble account, and the earnings that you make through your investments in the CalAble account are not taxable if used for qualified disability expenses. Of course, special needs trust is another bird of another feather. You work with an attorney to create a special needs trust. They can be expensive. There's a trustee that manages the special needs trust, and that person has sole discretion over spending. You can't spend, for special needs trust, you can't spend it on, for example, food and housing, whereas with CalAble you can. No deposit limits with the special needs trust. And earnings in the special needs trust are generally taxable. So those are the differences. But yes, you can have a CalAble account and you can have a special needs trust. Or, you don't have to have a special needs trust to have a CalAble account. But again, you can have both if that's what you want. Now, lastly, we've got resources. So the ABLE National Resource Center has a lot of really good information on the, excuse me, ABLE programs. If you want to compare different state ABLE programs, you go to the link in the number 2, and you can compare the state programs. So let's say I want to compare, I think you can compare up to 3 states at a time. I want to compare the ABLE program in California and Washington and New York, and that it'll do that for me. So sample certification of disability letter, so you can become eligible for the CalAble program, or the ABLE program, is in under number 3. An overview of the CalAble program is under number 4. How you open up an ABLE account, you can go to number 5. The different investment options. So I think currently California has 8 different investment options. One is very similar to just a checking account, and then the others, I'm sorry, this cough. The other accounts are made up of, the other investment options are made up of a combination of stocks and bonds and other things. But all of that information is on the CalAble website. And specifically, if you use the link under number 6, you'll go directly to that. An enrollment brochure, fact sheet for parents and guardians. And again, if you want to close your account, there's information there. And there's a form. So if I have an ABLE account and I die, there's a form that needs to be filled out, and the form is there should you need that. I think it's really important to know that the CalAble is there to answer any questions. So anything at all, you can reach out to them. They can help you, get answers to your questions. And just more information on the Medi-Cal recovery. Remember, I mentioned the California Advocates for Nursing Home Reform. Well, there's the information on the Medi-Cal estate recovery. And just more, the program disclosure under 15 is really important. In fact, when you're opening up an ABLE account, it actually has you check off that you read it, because it has so much information about the program, and it will probably answer a lot of questions that you have about the program. Ambassadors for the program under 16 and 17. And I think we have come to almost the end. More information about the CalAble program. If you want to reach out to us, we've got our intake line and our online request form for assistance. Our Office of Client Rights Advocacy is our sister organization. They're there to assist clients of regional centers with all kinds of matters, including matters involving regional centers, Social Security, special education, etc. So those are the resources. So we have come to the end of the presentation.